Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family, part of our mission to help families grow closer together through reading. Part of the way that you can help support our mission is by subscribing to the show on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Tonya Duncan Ellis. She is here to celebrate her great Sophie Washington middle grade series. Before we invite Tonya in, we want to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Such a great website. So proud of the work that my daughter Alejandra did rebuilding the website. We have a great newsletter there. When you first visit readingwithyourkids.com, you're going to be asked to sign up for our newsletter. Do it because we provide you with all sorts of great information in that newsletter. Great reading list, reminders of what's coming up, reminders of something that you may have missed here on the podcast. We also feature word finds and games that families can play together and recipes that families can make together. All sorts of great stuff on our newsletter. It's free, and you can sign up for it at readingwithyourkids.com. And if you go there, also check out our merch page. You could be the first one in your neighborhood to wear our very stylish and fashionable and oh so safe Reading with Your Kids face mask. Joining us right now from the great state of Texas, she is here to celebrate her wonderful middle grade series based on a wonderful character named Sophie Washington. Please welcome to the show author Tonya Duncan Ellis. Tonya, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Well, I'm excited to be here.
So tell us about this young woman, Sophie Washington.
Well, Sophie Washington is an 11-year-old girl from the suburbs of Houston who has common middle grade issues like standing up to bullies, trying to fit in with her friends, managing her schoolwork, but all the books have a Texas twist because since Sophie lives in Houston, Sophie and her diverse group of friends, they see things like alligators in their neighborhood. They go to the rodeo. They go fishing in Galveston Bay and wear cowboy hats and do a lot of things that capture the unique flavor of the lifestyle here in Texas.
You know, Texas is one of those places. I haven't been to it yet, but it's unique, and you know, it's almost, well, it at one time it was its own country. It's huge, it's diverse, and I don't know, is there a way to sum up what it's like to live and be from Texas in a sentence?
I don't know if I could capture it in a sentence, but it's just really a diverse melting pot, and you can add in some jalapeno peppers and just mix it all together. There's just people from everywhere. I love living here. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, and I've lived here for 17 years. And from the moment I moved here, I just felt at home and welcome with that good Texas spirit. Wow. And then here in Houston, because we're the fourth largest city in the United States, we're one of the most diverse. So I can go in, say, a Panera Bread here, and you'll see Indians, blacks, whites, Hispanic, Muslim, peoples from all over the world. So it's a true melting pot, but it's just a family feeling as well.
You know, I want to talk a little bit more specifically about this series, but you just bring up this idea of diversity and how diverse Houston is, and the fact that that's a real benefit and a blessing to the people who live there. One of the things that we love to celebrate here on the show is books being mirrors and windows, allowing kids to see themselves portrayed positively in the pages of books, and also allowing kids to see others portrayed in positive ways. And as we were speaking right before the show, you added another part of the house. You were talking about books being mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Can you talk a little bit about that and how Sophie Washington is a window and a mirror and a sliding glass door?
Yes, that quote comes from a renowned educator, Rudine Sims Bishop, who said that books are mirrors which allow kids to see themselves. They should be windows that open up different worlds to children or the reader, and sliding glass doors because they let you actually experience different lifestyles and things. And my books do all these things because I have characters in the books who are African, Hispanic. One is from India. And I explore the differences in their different cultures as they interact as friends in my books. And the main character of the book, Sophie, the protagonist, is an African-American girl from a middle-class African-American family living in Houston suburbia. So a window for other people to see what her life is. And for some of the African-American readers, they find her relatable, and it gives them a mirror reflecting their own experience.
Yeah. What was your inspiration for creating Sophie Washington? Is there a person in your life that you modeled her after? Is it a bit autobiographical?
I'm a mom of 3, and my daughter's name is actually Sophia. And so I would read chapter books similar to mine with my 3 children as they were growing up and as they got into those tween years and now older teens. And I noticed a lack of diversity in the books that we read. There weren't any books that I could find with the African-American protagonist that was similar to my character, or there were very few. And my son, I have 2 sons and a daughter. They didn't relate to any of the books I tried to bring that I used to like Little House on the Prairie. And, they were like, I do not want to read this at all. So I wanted to create something that was relatable to all. She's an African-American character. And then there are white children, black African children, kids like the kids I see here in Houston, because as I said, it is a melting pot. So they were similar to the friends that my kids had here in Houston.
Wonderful. It's it's a shame that now, just a few years ago, you weren't seeing the diversity in books. And it's, that whole idea that, necessity is the mother of invention. Necessity, the need to have these diverse books has finally encouraged a lot of authors to get out there and to start writing these books, so that our libraries, our home libraries, can truly be a rainbow that reflects the way the world should be if it's not already diverse.
Right. And it also opens up understandings because people may not know different people of different cultures, but reading about them as a child gives you the familiarity with different ways of life and different peoples. And so it just opens up those worlds, opens up lines of communication and understanding that we so need in our society today.
Yeah. One of the issues that you said that Sophie tackles in her middle school life is the issue of bullying and standing up for oneself. How does Sophie approach these issues?
Okay. Well, I was inspired to write the book that several of the books tackle bullying. Some have cyberbullying and other issues, but the one that really deals with it head on is Sophie Washington, The Snitch, which is the second book in my series. And in that book, Sophie and her friends are being terrorized by a bully, but they're afraid to report the bully. And that the main theme of the book is kind of teaching kids when to speak out and when it's right to speak out, because the kids felt like they'd be called snitches or tattletales, and they were more afraid of being called a snitch than in reporting the bully. And then there's some dire consequences as the story goes on. More and more trouble happens because they are afraid to tell. So the book kind of teaches kids when you need to tell an adult or get someone to intervene if you're being bullied.
And you use an interesting word in describing what was happening in that situation. you said that the kids are being terrorized, and I really like that you use that word, because one of the things that I think people don't understand is that while, everybody's experienced some type of being teased or being excluded, or, maybe some being pushed here and there are some kids who are truly terrorized. For some kids, being bullied, it's more than being called a name. It is a constant, ongoing experience of terror, and I think that the way you use it is very, very appropriate, and I hope people hear that, so that when their kids come to them and talking about their friends being bullied or themselves, that parents will really listen and take action.
Yes, and even during researching that book, I found that, the trauma experienced by kids who have been bullied can carry through their whole life through. So these are important issues, and in particular with the social media, because the bullying doesn't always stop when the children go home. This can continue, and it can be even more silent and undercover, because if it's online, it may be something that parents aren't aware of. Yeah. So keeping those lines of communication with your kids is very important.
Yeah. You mentioned the word research, and as an author of 11 books, and we didn't mention yet that the book, one of your books was just picked up by Scholastic, which is an amazing accomplishment. Congratulations. As an author, how important is it for authors to do research, even if they're, writing a book from the heart, something that's totally made up? Research is still pretty important. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and my books are all realistic fiction, so I want to make them as authentic as possible. For example, in the book you talked about that's picked up by Scholastic, Sophie Washington, Code 1, had her on a computer coding team. So I am not an expert in computer coding by any means. So to make it be realistic and relatable, I had to do some research on coding. And it's kind of brushed. It's a soft brush. It's not really going that deep into it, but research depending on what the topic is. And some of them are based on personal experiences too. For example, one book I have, Sophie Washington, Mission, Costa Rica. That's the only book where she leaves Texas. It's based on some family vacation experiences I had. But even then I do research, because I put different facts. I put little fun facts throughout my books. So I research them to make sure that they're accurate. And I do have a background in journalism as well. So I kind of draw on that.
Yeah. Costa Rica, what a beautiful country. My family and I had a wonderful vacation in Costa Rica. In fact, it was the last time we were able to vacation before the pandemic hit in. Tell me about that experience for Sophie. I'd be very interested. Where did she visit in Costa Rica?
Well, it's I don't know if I specifically say it's in Guanacaste. I can't pronounce it, but that is the area that she's in, and can trip with her family. So her father out in a village there, and they go to a village called Guaitil, where they see people doing pottery. A couple of her friends come on the trip with, lost in the jungle. They see all kinds of wildlife, as I know you experienced when you were there. Like a monkey gets in their room. So it's a story where they're learning lessons about being grateful for the things they have and helping others in service. So they're learning kind of about service, helping other people, and then having fun, seeing all the animals, getting lost in the jungle. They go zip lining, on river rafting. There is like a wisecracking sidekick, Cole. He's been in all the books. He loves video games and playing. He gets into all kinds of trouble too in this book.
Yeah, wonderful. Yes. We loved Costa Rica. The people are wonderful. The
food. I love the food. Did you like that?
I did. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We really did. I'm very familiar with Latin food. My wife is originally from Puerto Rico, so we have Latin food from all over the Caribbean and South America in our home a lot. One of the things that really blew me away is we took a trip we were staying in San Jose, the capital, and so we would go out on day trips, and we took a very long ride down to Limon. And on the way, we passed a banana plantation. And this plantation went on for miles and miles and miles. It was incredible.
Oh, that sounds so cool. I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah.
I saw a boa constrictor.
Ooh.
We were out on just these golf carts riding around, and it was huge. And one of the tour guides, he wrapped it around his neck. He picked it up and wrapped it around his neck, which I do include a boa constrictor in my book too.
Wow. That's really neat to be able to create the series where you're able to teach kids, but also share a lot of your family experiences. I'm wondering, how do your kids react to the fact that some of their lives, parts of their lives, are on display for the world to share?
They've been pretty accepting to it. Someone's asked me that before. And actually, when I first started writing them, because they're older, it's been about 5 years since I started the series. And I would read them to them as bedtime stories as I was writing them. And they would be like, oh, that's boring. Add some more action to that. And they are fictional, even though my daughter's name is Sophia and the main character is Sophie. I'm not just putting every little thing she does in her life, right, walking around, recording what she does. So they are fictional stories. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But they've been really supportive, because a lot of the things I'll read, even dialogue, and say, does this sound realistic? And they really helped me out a lot with the writing process. And I also was a Sunday school teacher for years, so I'm around kids all the time, and I kind of draw from different things that I see.
Yeah. We're speaking and we're publishing this episode in Black History Month in February 2020. It's February 20. I lost the whole year there. But how important is it for all of us to embrace this idea of taking a look at Black history, not only in February, but throughout the year?
Right. Well, I'm a big proponent of Black History 365. I love learning about Black history and sharing it on my social media pages and things with my book page. And as I was saying earlier, just with all the turmoil in our nation and, things going on in the world, as the world becomes smaller and we all become more interrelated, we need to learn about each other. And Black culture is a big part of our society here. Black people help build this nation, and to come together as one, we all need to be educated about the contributions of all Americans. So it's just vital, especially considering the turmoil we've been having so we need to all do this just to be closer together as a nation and as a people.
I agree. It is vital for us to acknowledge and recognize the contributions from all different ethnicities and races, especially those contributions that haven't been acknowledged throughout history. I think it's something that's very, very important to do, and I'm really hopeful that my grandkids and my great-grandkids are going to have an opportunity to live in a nation and in a world that is a lot closer to that dream that Dr. King had for all of us than the world is now.
Even though things seem difficult, when I look back at my own childhood and even things that I just accepted, I think things really are getting better, even though it may not seem like. People are really standing up for right, people of all races, and they're just saying some of these things just aren't acceptable. But, with growth, there's pain and there's difficulty, but I really am hopeful that through all this turmoil, things are just going to get even better for my grandchildren and for the generations to come.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting. This kind of circles back to what you talked about at the beginning, that your series, Sophie Washington, and in her life as a middle schooler, one of the things that she has to learn how to do is to stand up, speak up for herself. And I think that's one of the things that's happening today, is that more and more folks are standing up for themselves, and more folks are standing up for others that they're seeing being abused and mistreated.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just feel hopeful for the days to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited, and I'm happy that you're excited too. And I'm really excited for you. You know, you have there are 11 books in the Sophie Washington series. Your one book was picked up by Scholastic. What's that feel like for an author, especially an indie author, to have your book picked up by a publisher like Scholastic? Talk about a giant in the publishing industry.
It really felt like Christmas Day for me when I got the notice from them. I was kind of blinking open, like, is this really happening? You know, it's really just a dream come true and the culmination of just a lot of years of work for me. But that's a dream of any author, any indie author, I'm sure. But it's a great blessing. I feel so grateful that I've been given that opportunity, and that people have been receiving my books well. And my book, The Snitch, one school in Virginia has named it their book of the year for school year 2021. And so they're having some event in March with that book. And it's really resonated because it's talking about bullying and encouraging kids to speak out and stand up for themselves.
Yeah. What advice would you give to any author that's, maybe put out, one or two books and they're struggling and they think that it's hopeless? What message do you have to those authors?
Just keep going. If you feel like your book is a book that people will learn and grow from, just keep on working and don't give up. I've had so many doors shut. Every time doors shut, if I kept trying at it, other doors opened.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you really believe in it, you're getting some positive reviews or positive feedback. I would just continue, because even for traditionally published industry, the publishing industry is not easy for any author, whether indie or traditionally published. And it's kind of a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. It takes a while for you to go on, because even with my books, I wrote my first book and it took a good year or two before it really started catching on. And because we're having to do all the marketing and everything ourselves as well. Right.
Yeah. I guess one of the things we should remember is that, if you're getting into the children's book world as an author, if you're looking to write children's books, you should probably decide why you're doing it. Are you doing it to get rich and become rich and famous, or are you doing it because you have a message to share with kids? If the answer is you want to get into it to become rich and famous, you should probably do something else, because it's...
Yes. Exactly, because it's really a labor of love for me. I'm not becoming a millionaire with these books, but I love what I do, and every time telling me my books have encouraged them to read, or a parent thanking me for writing my series, it just warms my heart, and I feel blessed to be a part of their childhood, just like my favorite authors are a part of my childhood and part of my memories, happy memories of growing up.
Yeah. You said you're not a millionaire, and I would disagree. You're not you haven't earned millions of dollars from your books, but you've earned millions of smiles, millions of connections through them. So in that way, I think that you absolutely are a millionaire.
Yeah, that's what it really fills my well, and that's what it's all about for me. Just seeing those smiles from the kids and seeing them reading just like I love to read.
Yeah. Hey, Tonya, where can folks go online to find out more about you and to find out more about the Sophie Washington series?
They can find me on my website at TonyaDuncanEllis.com, on Instagram and Facebook at Tonya Ellis Books, and on Twitter at Tonya D. Ellis.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of the Sophie Washington middle grade series, Tonya Duncan Ellis. Tonya, thanks so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guests will be Sheetal Sheif and Salaja Joshi. They'll be here to celebrate always Anjali. It's a really, really fun series, and Salaja and Sheetal are part of Mango and Marigold Press, which is dedicated to bringing South Asian culture to the forefront and to introduce all kids to this great culture. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Tonya Duncan Ellis. Be sure to check out the Sophie Washington middle grade series. Also want to thank my team, starting with my daughter, Alejandra Doherty, my associate producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank our brand new intern, Alexia Brown. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for spreading the word about the Reading with Your Kids podcast. That's how the podcast has grown so much over the past 3+ years. We're almost celebrating our 4th year. And we're really excited about it. And we've grown because you folks have let your friends and neighbors know all about the show by being part of our social media following of Reading with Your Kids, Facebook.com/Reading with Your Kids, at Jedley Magic on Twitter, and at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, by sharing our posts, liking our posts, and just letting folks know about it. So we really, really thank you for that. But most of all, we thank you because you are making the world a better place. And you're doing that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.